Hey guys, this is Nate and this is the Nader Tater channel. Today I'm going to talk about my experience with this T-Mobile 5G home internet. This is the, people call it the trash can gateway. But I've had it for over a month, or right at a month now. Before that I had their 4G unit, which was the little white square size. And I've learned a lot of things since I've had this. You know, as far as my use here in the house, I do streaming TV. I have like 15 security cameras that are all Wi-Fi that go across it. I have about 50 Wi-Fi devices, and for all my actual Wi-Fi coverage, I use an Asus AI mesh system. So I'm just using this router as a modem basically. And in the past, I've had AT&T DSL, which was rated for 25 megabits per second download and about 6 megabits per second upload. And it's been very consistent, but when this T-Mobile stuff came out, this cellular home internet, I was enticed to get it because I don't have a way to get cable or fiber down to my house. You know, Comcast cable does service this area, but they wanted $9,000 to do a plant extension to run cable service to my address. So obviously for $9,000 it's not worth it. But what I'm going to talk about is the things I've learned from this, where it's not good for internet, and then things that it is good at, and then some of the quirks with this system, as well as some tips and tricks I have to use this for your home. And some of the challenges with it is a lot of people have their existing Wi-Fi system or maybe Ethernet throughout their house, and there's questions on, can you use this with an existing system? So I'll touch on that as well. If you want some other detail, I do have some other videos that I've gone into depth about, but I'm going to cover really kind of a broader range here of what I've experienced. And the first thing that happened when I got this was actually the speed was terrible. It was I was getting like a couple megabits per second down, and sometimes up I'd get like almost zero, and which was disappointing because before that I had the 4G LTE one, and I was actually getting good speeds. I was even getting over 60 megabits per second download, but I had to be up on the third floor of the house. It's not a full third floor, it's just like a little loft area. And I didn't have a good way to get that Wi-Fi signal or Ethernet down here to my home office. So this one, what's really nice is that I get good signal down here in the office. So this one seems to get better signal. But what I was saying was that the tower that's closest to me is 1 mile away, as far as the crow flies, and therefore I should get good signal. There are other towers that are like 3 to 4 miles away in some different directions. And what I found out is I was actually connecting to towers that were further away, and there's different bands, so basically like channels for the cellular service, and B12 is like a bad band, and I was connected to that, and it just had bad speed. So I actually contacted T-Mobile. I talked to them about my issue, and I said, hey, it looks like I'm not connected to my close tower, what's going on? And they actually looked into it, and they said, hey, that tower is actually down and being worked on. So that close tower was getting upgraded to 5G, and then they were also improving the 4G service to it. I don't know exactly the details of it, but they said that it would come back online at the end of the month, end of January here of 2021. So I basically said, okay, I'll wait a couple weeks and I'll see what happens. So I've been watching it, and I've had a couple blips where like the speed would get fast, but then maybe a day or two later it would get slow again. Now I drive by the tower and I actually see service people there climbing up the tower and doing things. So I knew they were doing things, so I had to wait patiently for that to happen. But now that everything seems to kind of stabilize, at least these past few days, which is exactly what they said, and they actually said they were going to transfer my ticket to engineering at T-Mobile, and sure enough, about a week later from that customer service call, an engineering guy did call me back and confirmed that they were working that tower, and by end of January it was going to be fixed and my speed should be great, being a mile away, blah blah blah. So I actually thought their customer service was good. I have seen some complaints online where people, bash them and say that their customer service doesn't know what they're talking about. And so, it perhaps is that your mileage may vary as far as the answers you get. I know there's a lot of people that have the 4G unit and they want the 5G router, and they're very low on stock, and so a lot of people are getting the runaround on how do you get this 5G if you already have the 4G. But all the new customers, from my understanding, they're shipping only this 5G router out now. So if you sign up for the service, you should get this one, which is 5G capable. And so I noticed I went from connecting to B12 to connecting to B66, which is a good 4G LTE band. There's also like B2 and B4, and I think B66 is actually like a sub-channel of a B4 band, but that's probably a little more detail than you need to know. So then there's the 5G channels, and a common 5G channel for T-Mobile is N71. And then there's, I think Sprint is like N41. So there's different channels you could connect to, and it tells you information, maybe what tower. You can go to cellmapper.com and you can type in your address, and you can try to find your local towers based off the channel. And you can even look up in the app, you can go to the cell tower metrics, and you can try to figure out which tower you're connected to by the ID number. With these devices, whether you're talking about the 4G LTE one or this 5G one, placement does matter. So typically going higher in your house is better. The second floor is better than the first floor typically. And then sort of going to windows is better. But you can use cellmapper.com to at least get an idea of the direction that the closest tower is at. And you can go to that side of the house and try to go towards a window. The other thing that seems to be sensitive, not even just, if you make a big change, but even a small change, moving it 3 inches and then rotating it will make a big difference. So for me in this office, I actually get a reasonable signal compared to anywhere else in the house, which is nice because this is where I want to have Ethernet to my router. But if I move it from down here to up here, I get a better signal. And then I found that if I have this, the T facing for me, I guess it's kind of north, that's where I get the best signal. If I rotate it, my signal will drop and your speed will drop with that. But I only get 2 bars on the 4G LTE connection, which is the B66 band, and then I get 3 bars on the 5G, which is the N71 band for me. But I'm able to get good speed. So if we look at the history of my speed, when it started and I got just B66 before they turned on 5G, I was getting basically the same speed that I get with my AT&T. So that's like 25 to 30 megabits per second download, and I was getting 3, 4, something like that megabits per second upload. So it wasn't good enough for me to make the switch, because with the cellular stuff, it does seem to be more inconsistent with speed. My AT&T DSL was really rock solid and steady every time I tested it. But as soon as I clicked on the 5G, which did happen at the end of the month like they said, then there's something called signal or carrier aggregation, and that's where they are actually using both the 4G signal and the 5G signal to take those together and help improve your speed. So this can do that. And as soon as that happened, boom, I got these big numbers that I was hoping for. So I think my fastest speed I've ever gotten from the testing was like 140 or just under 140 megabits per second download, and my upload was over like 40 megabits per second upload. I would say typically now my regular speed is something like probably in the 75 to 100 megabits per second download, and mid 30s megabits per second upload. So that's kind of what is typical for me. And the the thing with cellular is that it does change, like I said. So these guys are deprioritized on the network. So there's some people online that complain about peak time, like mid-afternoon to evening, when people are streaming and on their phone doing stuff, their speed might drop drastically to a point where they can't, or they say they can't use it, like it goes to 10 megabits per second or something. But I think for a lot of people that doesn't happen. For me, I haven't noticed a big speed difference based off time of day. I do seem to notice sort of random speed differences. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, but like I said, one time I'll get 140, and then most of the time I'll be like 70, 80, 90, or 100 megabits per second download. And then sometimes my upload will go from the 40 down to like a 20. But either way, since they've got the 5G clicked on my tower, the slowest I think I've gotten is like at least double, if not, yeah, so it's at least double what I get with the AT&T DSL. So worst case, I'm twice as fast as I was before. So to me, it's a no-brainer. It's actually $5 a month cheaper. So I'm turning off my AT&T and I'm going to go 100% reliant on this. And what I've done this past week is so for a while there I was using both of them. Like I would have this hooked up just to my computer, but then the rest of my internet in the house was going through AT&T DSL. Now I've been using this for as the modem disconnected to AT&T. That way I can make sure everything works as I wanted it to. Some of the issues that they have with this is things like VPN. So VPN, would use, it's basically like a tunnel for all your internet service, and if things aren't transferred correctly, then the VPN won't work and it will fail. So for that, some people have said that theirs doesn't work. For me, for my work one, it does work, but really you have to try it and see if you can adjust your VPN settings. You can adjust it to make it work. You have to change your MTU packet size to be like 1300. Default I think is 1460, and it's just it's a technical issue with the way the data is transmitted through the cellular network. The packet sizes have to be smaller, otherwise they get dropped off, and when they drop, the VPN fails. So for that, that's a big issue. For gaming, there are some big issues with this, and that's the latency that goes along with it. My latency typically is around, which is listed as ping. Typically, if you do like a speedtest.net, the ping is basically the latency, the lag. And the bigger challenge isn't just that ping number on the speed test side, but it's actually the loaded ping. When you are sending data, either upload or download, what is the ping under that situation? So that's one thing I have noticed is with the cellular stuff, it seems to be less good at multitasking. So the quality of service isn't there like it is in some of the wired solutions. So that is most noticeable to me when I connected multiple devices directly to this. So this one's Wi-Fi is actually really good. It's actually pretty impressive. So this is a Nokia Fast Mile router that they rebrand, but it's capable of mesh network. So they sell, I think Nokia calls them beacons, but you can buy more beacons and you can make this a mesh network. You have to use the Nokia app, and I'll talk about that in a second. But the Wi-Fi is actually pretty good coverage. It has the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz and Wi-Fi 6. But I turn on the Wi-Fi and I connected multiple devices to it, and then I intentionally would be streaming YouTube, and then I would go over here, or I'd do Amazon on the TV, and then I would stream YouTube on my computer, and then I get my tablet out, and I definitely noticed if I had things streaming and downloading, or like I was doing a speed test and then I would try to open up websites, you would get a delay. And I think it's really part of that quality of service where the speed's technically fast, but when I went and asked my tablet to go to a new website, it did nothing for a while because it was basically waiting in line to send that request out. So as soon as it got that request, then it downloaded the website quickly and it showed. But in reality, to me as a user, it was slow. But technically the speed's fast. It was just you had to wait in line for that message to get sent out. So what I found is by using a router first, and that ASUS router has quality of service stuff, it seems to be much better at giving fair bandwidth to each device that's connected. And so I don't know, if that's the T-Mobile firmware on this guy, if the Nokia, is kind of the same way. I'm not sure, but regardless of what it is, I would not be happy if I used this as my, router and my home Wi-Fi system, because it can't multitask well. That's what I found, at least. But you also can't change any settings on this thing. So I've talked about that before in my other reviews, that there's very few settings on there. There are a little bit more settings. The other point on this one is to turn off the Wi-Fi is a real pain, because in the web interface, you have to go to each SSID. I think there's 12 of them, and you have to disable the Wi-Fi, the broadcast, for each of those SSIDs, which is pretty annoying. But you are able to do it. So I have the Wi-Fi turned off, and I just have a single Ethernet cable that goes to the WAN port on my ASUS router. And I am doing double NAT, which means this guy is a DHCP server, and then it's another one there. You can't turn off DHCP on here. You can't do a pass-through WAN internet. And speaking of WAN internet, like the IP address, all of the cellular systems, they use CGNAT for IP, so which means you're not going to get like a regular public IP, which really is a big downfall if you're trying to do lots of specific hostings, as far as you're trying to host websites or servers or something like that. Some of that hosting would work, but a lot of them won't, because they can't work with the CGNAT setup. So that's something to know about. But so on here, like I said, this is a Nokia device. The other annoying thing, and actually why I'm being careful to keep this thing plugged in just to move it so I can show you guys, is it has a battery in there, but it sounds like T-Mobile is not utilizing that battery yet really much. And now I think the Nokia Fast Mile is the same way, where the Wi-Fi and the Ethernet ports basically turn off when it's on battery, and so you're supposed to just use it to look at signal quality, but that's really, it's worthless in my opinion. But the problem I was talking about is these devices lose their settings, and they do a factory reset when you unplug them. Not all the time. It's seemingly random. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense of why or when they do it. It's a known issue. Hopefully new firmware is coming out and will get updated. There's some other bugs like that. They're just weird. Like I said, the ability to turn off Wi-Fi, that should be a one-click button. It shouldn't be a multi-step process to do that. But next I want to talk about the Nokia Wi-Fi. So let me share my screen here. So here is the Nokia Wi-Fi app. You just download that on the Play Store, and you can see it has my home network. One nice thing though is that this is the only way, I think, to turn on the guest network. So you can toggle this switch, and then that will turn on a guest Wi-Fi. So if you have people over, you can give them an easy password. The other thing I will say that's kind of nice is they do make it easy to share with a QR code, so you can have a friend scan the QR code, or you can hit share and you can send it via text message or a message app. So that is kind of handy. And then you can see how many devices you have online. You can make family profiles so that you can limit when people can use it. So that's a nice feature. And then let's see, where was I? Oh, like this network map, obviously I don't really have anything because I just have my router. I don't know why it says poor signal. It doesn't make any sense to me. But here on the network map on the devices, this is where it shows that you can do add a beacon, and a beacon is Nokia's term for a mesh node system. So I haven't tested it. I'm pretty sure based off the hardware in this app that you could add a Nokia beacon to this and you could have a mesh system. I guess I'm not going to pay for your beacon if it doesn't work, but that would be my guess here. And then, settings, I was really optimistic because I was hoping that I could get to some extra settings in using the Nokia Wi-Fi app. And there are some I just talked about, but I go to advanced, and lo and behold, only thing that's in there is the DNS server, but you really can't even configure it in there. And now I did do some poking on Nokia's website. They have some screenshots of this. Actually, no, it's on the App Store. I looked, and then on the App Store, the Nokia Wi-Fi app for their own FastMile, it had more settings for DHCP server. I'm trying to remember if it had pass through. I don't think it maybe had a pass through listed, but they definitely had more options. So I know that they're limiting what you can do, and I don't know if that's intentional or if they're just working up to it, and they will eventually come in and add more features to it. But overall, I've actually been pretty happy with this. I've been pretty impressed. For our usage, there really hasn't been any issues with it. The only other thing that I know can be an issue is because of the way that the cellular system does the routing. Even though I know it connects to that tower, either websites or things like streaming services, they don't always see your correct location. So there's been times when it thinks I'm in Colorado, for example. There's been times when it thinks I'm in Chicago. And so a lot of times that doesn't really matter, but probably the most annoying thing is there's some annoying things like, for example, like Google or even Facebook or some bank accounts. They'll say, hey, it sets off their flag and says, looks like, this is the first time that you've logged in from this area. And, I look and it thinks I'm in Colorado. So, right. So it trips some flags from that standpoint when it knows I typically, log in from the Southeast Michigan area. So, that's not a deal breaker, but for people that do streaming and they have a streaming service that uses their IP as a location to determine what local channels to give you, which I think like AT&T now or whatever they call their streaming service, they do it. I'm sure other ones do it. So you'll get the wrong local stations basically. So that's something to consider if like you love your local channel for news or whatever it may be, and it uses your IP to get that. This will probably mess it up, and you don't know, one morning you might wake up and you're getting Colorado news or something else. So that's another downside, but overall I'm gonna go with it, and if something changes I'll make a new video and share it with you guys and tell you what's happened. My biggest fears with it would be they get congestion on this tower, which I don't think is going to happen. I'm in kind of a rural area, but then if my speed gets slow, obviously I'm going to get rid of it and I'll go back to DSL. Or if they start jacking up the prices and playing the games like all the other telecom companies do, where they just keep ratcheting you up. For $50 a month, it's definitely worth it. I'm probably willing to pay a little bit more than that if they keep the speed up. And the other thing is data, so unlimited. I typically use probably close to 1 terabyte of data, maybe even more now that I'm doing some YouTube videos, and those are fairly big. But like probably the reason why I've actually done it, I've got it, is because of YouTube, and it's that upload speed. So I'm able to get, like I said, 40 megabits per second. It's not unheard of for me to get that, and that is like 5 times or more faster than my DSL. So I'm actually loving the advantages that it provides me. All the disadvantages that you can find out there that I've listed in this video and others, they don't really hit me. So I'm a happy camper here. But like and subscribe to my channel so you can get updates, and follow me along. I do all kinds of other things. I do woodworking, metalworking, other technology. I'm going to cover smart home items, security cameras, Ring, Blink, and Foscam cameras. So lots of stuff's coming out, and follow along.